All right, welcome to our second video looking at how to create a use case diagram. So before we look at how, obviously talk about the what and the why. So a use case diagram is what we would consider a very high level diagram. So we're not going into a lot of detail around the specifics of our digital solution, but rather what we're doing is we're addressing and answering the question, what will the user say that the solution does? So the idea of using this very high level method of thinking to begin with is in line with our computational thinking process of decomposition. So starting with the big concepts and then breaking them down over time. The use case diagram really allows us to do that because it is quite a high level, simplistic view before we get too far into the nitty-gritty. So to create a use case diagram, we'll be using a software package called Star UML. There is other software packages that do UML diagrams, of which use case diagram is one. However, we like to use Star UML because it provides all of the different access to all of the different models and diagram styles that we would like to use in digital solutions, aside from perhaps mind maps. But again, mind maps are very open and fluid in terms of how they're developed and created. UML diagrams. So I've probably jumped the gun a bit. UML standing for Unified Modeling Language. Those type of diagrams are a bit more prescriptive in how they are represented. And the reason why we use them is it becomes a common language between all different developers, particularly with globalization in the tech industry. You can't always guarantee that the person that you're working with has the strongest English capabilities. So being able to use diagrams and graphics to display your ideas helps with that understanding, potentially across, potential language barriers. So getting into the how to complete a UML use case diagram. To start with, we need to create a new model. So the current model is set up as a class diagram. That's the default when we use Star UML. So to access the use case diagram, we're going to go to Model, Add Diagram, and select Use Case Diagram. Once you've done that, you'll see Use Case Diagram 1 appears in the Working Diagram section. It also appears across here in the Model Explorer. And the toolbox with the different elements of our use case appear on the bottom left-hand side. So the main ones that we'll use is the use case subject, which is a rectangle shape, and it basically defines the boundary of our digital solution. So another reason why use case diagrams are really good to use is that they help us not only to understand what the solution will do, but also help us to understand what our solution won't do. So I guess an example of that is if we were to say create a restaurant ordering application, right, we may want it to, automatically take the orders and store the information on what table that order has to go to. But we may not necessarily want them to pay in it. We may still want them to use the current systems we've got, which is FPOS, cash, those sort of facilities. So in that case, the finance and the payment system would appear outside of our use case diagram because it's not within the actual system that we're developing. So I'm going to use the rectangle to draw our use case. And so the topic or the project that we're looking at is a digital student planner. Essentially looking at a system that will replace the current paper-based student planner that students at Brisbane SDE receive at the start of the year. And as we've talked about, there is benefits to that. However, being a digital kind of group, we've decided that we can do better. So the other two elements that we're going to access are the use case and the actor. So the use case is the actual, I guess, way that we use it. So the case in which we use the solution, therefore use case. And the actor is not necessarily just a person, even though you can see it's represented by a stick person, but it's also any external system or external entity that impacts on the system. So generally what I like to do is to start off by importing our actors. So you click actor and then just click and drag. You can just click also and it will automatically generate an actor for you. So I've added in a few actors there because based on our mind map, which we looked at previously, we've got students, they're going to be the main ones interacting with our system, but we may also have interaction from parents and our teachers. So once we've got our actors in place, we can start asking that question. How will these actors act upon the system? How will they use the system? What will they say the solution does? And each one of those ideas we can represent with a use case. So students may, go in and add assignment due dates, add assignments, assignment dates, let's say, because it might not just be due dates, it might be checkpoints, draft dates, all that sort of thing. We try to keep these as vague as possible. We're not going to get too caught up in those details just yet. So they won't want to add assignment dates. They may want to add homework tasks. They may want to check off completed tasks. As you've done something, go, yep, I've done that. You can get rid of that from my list of things to do. They might want to be reminded of due dates, also upcoming due dates. So I'm starting to get a little bit more detailed here than I need to be necessarily, but hopefully you're starting to get the idea. It doesn't like doing it on multiple lines. So let's call it due date reminders. We can make it a bit smaller. It's going to be a bit nicer. All right, so in terms of, I guess, parents, they may want to just view the due dates, and I guess, that's probably something the students need to be able to do too. So view due dates. Let's fix that up. And so I guess teachers, they may actually want to just also look at the adding of assignment dates and homework dates. So again, this is probably something I'd draft on with pencil and paper first, but now that I've thought about it, these probably belong down here. So I could have actually just moved the teacher, I suppose, but I've committed to this now. All right, so yeah, you can get as pedantic as you want or as laid back as you want. Again, this is a pretty high level sort of document, so it's not completely strict in its formatting. Shrink that up a little bit. So you can see that you can resize and you can, double click to edit anything. Really simple to use. So once we've got our use cases in place, we can add in our associations. So this basically just creates a link between the actor and their relevant use case. So we know that the students, we want them to have access to all of these things. So checking off completed tasks, due date reminders. So you'll notice what I'm doing. I wasn't very explicit on that. So selecting association from the toolbox. And then as long as we're within sort of the main block where the student is, we click and drag to inside the use case. And you'll notice that it connects it with a nice little line that sort of stops at the block where the use case and the actor lie. And this is really handy. So when we want to say move around our students, all the lines follow it. If we move around our use case, it shouldn't be outside the boundary, but it also follows the lines, the associations. So quickly finish adding those. So for our teachers, they're looking at adding in the homework and stuff, perhaps, if they need to. Parents may want to, view the due dates. All right. So once we've got our basic ideas that we're working off the back of, who's interacting with those particular use cases, we've got ourselves a finished use case diagram. So we can always file save as we go. Should do that real quickly. So I'll just find where I'm saving this. School plan project. So with the star UML file, this will save all of our models. So I'm just going to call it student planner models. Save. And then I'm also going to export this as a diagram. So this will be just for this diagram. Right. The file type doesn't particularly matter. I personally go with PNG, but it's much for muchness. And I'm just going to call it use case diagram .png. So now we have ourselves a use case diagram. That picture can go in as part of our documentation, and we can continue on our merry way. So that's a quick demonstration of how to put together a use case. The next one, we'll look at the next level down from this, which is an activity diagram.